The old tales spoke of her, of the white lady who haunted Camp Helen State Park. Growing up in Panama City Beach, I had heard the stories countless times. The apparition of a woman in a flowing white dress, her ghostly figure seen wandering near the water's edge, was a legend that sent shivers down the spines of even the bravest souls. I never believed in ghosts, though. At least, I didn't until I decided to spend a weekend camping in the park. I arrived at Camp Helen late one Friday evening. The sun was setting, casting a fiery glow across the tranquil waters of Lake Powell. The park was quiet, with only a few other campers scattered among the sites. I set up my tent near the edge of the woods, close enough to hear the gentle lapping of the waves. As darkness fell, I settled in by the fire, enjoying the solitude and the star-studded sky above. It was around midnight when I first heard it, a faint, mournful wail carried on the breeze. I paused, listening intently. The sound seemed to come from the direction of the old lodge, a structure that had stood abandoned for years. The stories about the lodge were as old as the tales of the White Lady herself. It was said that she had lived there once, and that she met her tragic end by the water's edge. Curiosity got the better of me, and I grabbed my flashlight, setting off down the trail that led to the lodge. The path was dark, the trees looming overhead like silent sentinels. My footsteps crunched on the gravel, the only sound in the stillness of the night. The air was thick with the scent of pine and earth, and as I moved deeper into the woods, a chill ran down my spine. As I neared the lodge, I saw her. A woman in a white dress, standing at the edge of the lake, her back to me. Her hair was long and dark, flowing in the breeze. She stood perfectly still, gazing out over the water. My heart pounded in my chest as I approached her. "Hello." I called out, my voice sounding small and uncertain. She didn't move. I took a few steps closer, my flashlight illuminating her pale figure. "Are you okay?" Suddenly, she turned to face me. Her face was pale, her eyes hollow and filled with a sadness that seemed to pierce my soul. She opened her mouth as if to speak, but no sound came out. Instead, she began to glide towards me, her feet never touching the ground. Panic seized me, and I stumbled back, tripping over a fallen branch. I hit the ground hard, the wind knocked out of me. When I looked up, she was gone. The only sound was the gentle rustling of the leaves and the distant cry of a night bird. I scrambled to my feet and ran back to my campsite, my mind racing. Had I really seen a ghost? The stories of the White Lady flashed through my mind. A woman who had lost her life tragically near the lake, her spirit doomed to wander the park for eternity. I didn't sleep that night, sitting by the fire until the first light of dawn chased away the shadows. The next day, I explored the park, trying to find any information about the woman. I spoke to a park ranger, an older man with a lined face and wise eyes. "Ah, the White Lady," he said, nodding slowly. "Her name was Elizabeth. She lived in the lodge when it was still a private residence. She was engaged to a man who went off to war and never returned. She waited for him, day after day, until one night she walked into the lake and never came out." I shivered as he spoke, the pieces of the story falling into place. That night, I sat by the fire again, watching the flames dance and listening to the sounds of the night. I was both terrified and fascinated, wanting to understand more about Elizabeth and her tragic tale. As the clock struck midnight, I heard the wail again, faint and sorrowful. I followed the sound, my heart pounding, my flashlight flickering in the darkness. This time, I approached the lake with a mixture of fear and determination. She was there, standing by the water's edge, her white dress billowing in the breeze. I watched as she turned to face me, her eyes filled with an unspoken plea. I felt a tug at my heart, a deep sense of sorrow that I couldn't explain. "Elizabeth," I whispered, stepping closer. "I'm sorry for what happened to you." She seemed to nod, a faint smile touching her lips. Then, as suddenly as she had appeared, she was gone, leaving behind only the soft rustle of the leaves and the whisper of the wind. I stood there for a long time, gazing out over the lake. The White Lady's story had touched me in a way I hadn't expected, and as I walked back to my campsite, I couldn't shake the feeling that she had found some measure of peace. The next morning, I packed up and left Camp Helen, the memory of the White Lady lingering in my mind. I often think about her, about the love and loss that bound her to the park. And every time I drive past Camp Helen, I glance towards the lake, half expecting to see her standing there, watching, waiting, forever lost in her own sorrow.